Canola School on RealAgriculture.com is brought to you by Alberta Canola Producers Commission, Sask Canola, and Manitoba Canola Growers.
Kelvin Hepner with Real Agriculture, and joining us now, Meghan Vankosky with Agriculture and Agri-Food Canada. And Meghan, we've been hearing about this new midge species that's been found in Western Canada. It was thought to be Swede midge, I think, and now work is underway to actually describe and categorize and determine what this new midge species is.
Yes, exactly. So Swede midge was first found and confirmed in Saskatchewan in 2007, and since then there's been research done on it to see what is happening with that population in Saskatchewan. But in the last few years, we actually haven't detected any Swede midge in Saskatchewan that we've been able to confirm. But in the meantime, we've detected this other midge species. And so my colleague, Dr. Boyd Morey, also at Agriculture and Agri-Food Canada, is working on a publication right now to identify that midge and give it a scientific name because it doesn't currently have one, which makes studying it a little bit of a challenge. So once that publication is out, then we can actually talk about it in terms of a name. But in the meantime, we're also doing research to figure out where it is found in the prairies and what kind of impact it might have on canola in the prairies.
So what's the difference between Swede midge and this new yet to be named midge species, or what gave it away that hey, this is something different here?
Very good question. There were a number of different signals that we started to pick up on. The first was that we had emergence cages set up in the field, or Boyd had emergence cages set up in the field, and they weren't catching a lot of midge in them, but they were pretty positive that they were there. So they put pheromone traps inside those emergence cages baited with the lure for Swede midge, and they didn't catch any midge on those traps. So they thought that maybe the lure wasn't working properly, and they sent it to Ontario, where Swede midge is a very big problem, and the lures work perfectly fine. So there seemed to be some pheromone differences in what those midges were attracted to. So that was our first clue. We had a behavioral sign, and then we started looking closer at the morphology of the midge that we were catching in the traps, and it was quite different than the Swede midge as well. And finally, we did some molecular DNA work, and that came back as indicative of a different species as well. So with those three cues, we were able to conclude that it was a different species and not Swede midge.
Visually, there's a jumping aspect to this species?
So the larvae do this little jump, which makes them kind of annoying to handle. When you're out in the field and you open up a flower and there's larvae inside it, we want to collect those larvae. But unless you put the flower into a bag really quickly, the larvae can all jump away. So it's probably part of a defense mechanism, but they also need to pupate in the soil. So the larvae need to reach the soil somehow, and that movement probably facilitates hopping out of the plant and onto the ground. Okay. But Swede midge larvae do that as well.
What do we know about the impact that it has on canola and how significant a pest it can be?
We don't know that yet. So Dr. Morey and I have some research grants that are funded by the Canola Agronomic Research Program, and one of those is to determine what kind of impact this species could potentially have on canola production.
Okay. So pretty exciting, I guess, in some ways, still being at the early stages of figuring out a whole new potential pest and species here in Western Canada?
It's quite exciting, and you don't often get to start off your career with identifying a new species like Boyd has done, and then also follow through on that and be able to be the first people to do the research on what's going on with that species. So it's very exciting to be part of the work that Boyd's involved with.
For an entomologist, I should clarify, not necessarily for the farmers who don't need another thing on their list to worry about.
Very, very true. It's exciting for us nerdy entomologists, for sure.
All right. You said it, I didn't.
That's fair.
Thanks for your time, though, again, Meghan.
You're very welcome. Thanks.